And with that, let's talk about Tolkien.
Yeah, all right then. Well, last segment on a Friday. Let's just have a nice, enjoyable chat about Tolkien, shall
Let's rehash a segment I'm joking.
Well, here's the thing. You see, not many people know this, but I happen to love Tolkien's works intensely. I'm a huge fan.
I thought you were more of a Martin guy.
No, I've written several pieces for Islander, and I've just sorry.
What's that?
Oh, I'll explain to you later. But yes, as you cuttingly pointed out, we did have a Tolkien segment earlier last week, hosted by Josh. Very splendid segment. And so we've had one segment, yes, but what about second segment?
You know what? You still won't be milking it as much as the Hobbit movie, which was 3 unnecessarily long movies.
Right, that was supposed to be 2. So
one would have been sufficient.
Well, I know.
They added characters. That pale guy barely gets a mention in the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this won't be anywhere near as self-indulgent as that.
Guy.
The pale orc. Not really a
CGI pale orc guy.
Yeah. He should have been dead before the events of the war.
They added an elf-hobbit romance subplot as well in those films. Oh, God, don't remind me how bad those films were.
Well, we're not going to talk about those. What we're going to talk about is Tolkien himself and his ideas are shown throughout the Lord of the Rings, because Josh talks about here some of the great character journeys that Tolkien writes for his heroes, such as Theoden and such as the Hobbits, of course. And so I wanted to really talk about some of the broader themes in terms of justice and kingship, right, and what Tolkien clearly sees as the virtues. And so we want to start here, though, because even though this is obviously a total S-post from Homeland Security, and
they've been doing a lot of that.
Yes, and has nothing to actually reflect the number of deportations, right? Okay, so
I've not looked into what the numbers are.
Their media is one thing, and how well they're actually upholding these ideas are totally separate. That's not what this is about. The point is, there won't be a Shire Pippin is a very, very stern warning, obviously, about what happens when you allow evil to just run totally rampant in your society. And not only that...
What do you mean? If a load of orcs move in and they just keep calling themselves hobbits, if you just say that the orcs are hobbits and they live in the Shire, that makes them hobbits, right?
Yeah, they're citizens of the Shire.
Well, maybe under Saruman's...
Yeah, I don't think Tolkien sees it that way.
Yeah. And so, obviously, but this spawned the great, as Middle-earth Mixer points out here, another 2 straight days of arguing with libs about media literacy. I'm so excited. Me too, Mixer. That's why we're going to do it.
He actually means it as well, because he'll be getting numbers off of those arguments.
Well, I mean, he deserves them. He's a great account. But you go on to... I mean, obviously, but we on the right have been memeing the Lord of the Rings for years and years now, you know, like such as Boromir in Hot Water for saying Minas Morgul is no longer a Gondorian city, even as it's obviously inhabited by...
But Grima Wormtongue said this incredibly diverse city is Lord Sauron's greatest strength. I also think that someone living in Minas Tirith shouldn't be allowed to comment on Minas Morgul's affairs unless they say things we like and agree with.
There you go.
Very Wormtongue thing to say.
Yep, and another one, obviously, 1 in 3 orcs at the gates goes hungry, and it's time to stop the siege. And so, obviously, you have a particular type of person, right, who... So, I, as an atheist...
I've just noticed the writer of the article as well.
Yes.
Bullbeer Ruby Rattler.
They always have the greatest names. They really do. Actual Guardian columnist, in fact.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, several articles. Check it out. And so, all I was going to say, though, is that, like, I, as a stuffy, boring atheist, right, I am not pretending...
Yay.
Right.
Yeah, I'm always shocked when you say that, because I just can't take in that you're an atheist.
But
maybe address that.
I'm sorry. I'll have a stern word with myself later. But the point is, right, that I am not looking at Tolkien's works and trying to go, how can I see this through an atheist lens, right? No, it's a fundamentally Catholic piece of work. And sometimes you just have to view things authentically, as they were intended to be, and read into the messages that are obvious and self-evident throughout not only The Lord of the Rings, but the entire work of Tolkien.
And didn't he famously say something like at first by accident, but then deliberately in revision?
Yes, and this is this grapples with it, particularly during the time of the Third Age, in the time of the Lord of the Rings, because when you look at the people of Gondor or Rohan or even the Dwarves of Erebor, you see that they have no actual formal religion. There are no religious ceremonies, that they live in a kind of pagan world. But that doesn't take away from the fact that their lives are still governed by sort of like the divine metaphysics.
Yeah,
going back to the one who created the universe.
The one, yeah. The classic BBC interview with Tolkien, which everyone should listen to, and he says to him, the guy goes, but they're not really, they're not religious, are they? And he says that God's hardly mentioned except the one. And then Tolkien does concede, he goes, yeah, just the one who's mentioned. So he's mentioned briefly the idea of a God, which is the one, but they don't, as the interview points out, they don't sort of swear on their gods. They talk about their swords and things instead. So he couldn't give, he said it wouldn't have worked to sort of give them more religions. Anyway.
Yeah, and one of his critiques, just to say, of C.S. Lewis and the Chronicles of Narnia was the fact that Aslan is just Jesus. The fact that you actually have Father Christmas in the story itself. And so
he was critical of the fact that the allegory was not just there, but that it was so obvious and overt.
Yes. He also thought it was too mixed. And also he hated allegory, didn't he? In that interview, he says, he goes, I'm entirely historically minded. He doesn't like allegory at all. He sees it as a history.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so it's not just the literary critics on Twitter, of course. It's actors who are in the films who don't understand the actual characters. And it's a great disappointment. It's a great disappointment to me, because I wish he was as cool as his film counterpart, but I suppose that's the nature of actors, really.
I dislike that this implies that Viggo Mortensen was playing the part at the end of Return of the King, where he sits the throne, thinking in character as Aragorn, time to begin accepting orc refugees.
Right.
Like a Boris Johnson-esque flip.
Right.
Betrayal.
But this was in response to when, you see this from many years ago now, but when the Vox Party were basically using Aragorn in some of their campaign material. Basically saying Aragorn represents enlightened monarchy, he represents protecting the good, and a fundamental part of the good is, of course, demographics, right? It means the people of Gondor are the people of Gondor, and they're not fighting to become multicultural realms of tolerance.
That's where you're wrong. According to Mortensen, he was playing it with the pure focus on GDP.
Right.
I just love just once an actor to come out and say, yeah, of course I'm for absolute monarchy and the old hierarchies, and I applaud what Vox are doing, because in many ways...
I wish the King of Spain had more power, actually.
Just one actor. Yeah. Probably like, what's his name would do it, his name's gone out of my head, Vincent Gallo. He would say that, but he was sort of semi-banned from Hollywood because of those kind of... John Voight, he might say it, and James Woods might say it. There's like a handful.
Yeah, maybe Rob Schneider these days.
Maybe Mel Gibson would say it.
Yes, Gibson would.
He would say a lot.
He would say a lot of things.
I mean, I think which was the one of the Pythons who's dead now, the one who would play the piano in some sketches. I've forgotten his name.
Well, Graham Chapman and Terry Jones are the
Terry Jones, right? Terry Jones. There's an old interview with him from like the 70s or the 80s with Terry Wogan, where he characterizes himself as a reactionary, and he talks about how much he loves the idea and idealisms of medieval England and wishes that we could return to those.
Wow.
Which is interesting coming from a Python.
Yeah, especially when you see the slop that John Cleese posts these days. I mean, he did say London is no longer an English city, but now he's just gone
and everything since then has been, and I don't want to fix it.
Yeah, he's gone full Polanski.
But anyway, I digress.
Not that other Polanski.
We were talking about film.
Yeah. Quick save there. And so you end up, of course, with these sorts of quote tweets where we've got this alley woman here saying, I think, Tolkien was vehemently anti-Nazi, anti-fascist, and anti-authoritarian. He was critical of authoritarian enforcement as seen in The Lord of the Rings, where evil forces, not good, enforce strict border controls. Okay.
What?
I'm just going to go through
just before you do, I'll give you one, which of course he had that letter. He was anti-Nazi. There was that letter where they're trying to gauge his sort of Aryan stock, and he basically sends
about whether they could publish The Hobbit.
Well, and he sends a letter back basically going, "I'm not up for all this nonsense." He was very anti that. Yes. That part's true. The rest, and maybe the anti-fascist stuff, but the rest.
Wasn't he a massive supporter of Franco?
Yes, because he was tangentially. Obviously, this was one of the things that is revealed in a letter that he wrote to his son, and in letters that came out after his death. But this is another
Franco one. Fair enough.
This is another aspect to Tolkien as well, which is that he was an intensely private man. He didn't really want you to understand his work through biographies and TV interviews.
Or as an expression of him. He wanted it to stand by itself in the same kind of way that Beowulf, we don't know who the author is, so it stands as its own work, representative of a broader culture.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you see, and this is a total, like when friend of the show Ralph Scholhammer just says anything that the mid-20th century Germans did is automatically evil. Like, no, having borders is something that every single nation and empire has had for all of time. This is not...
famously, Stalin enacted this huge border thing called the Iron Curtain immediately after the Second World War.
Yeah. Hitler drank water. It's that kind of thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's similar to Camus in that essay, The Second Career of Adolf Hitler. You can't do anything if it might be more like Hitler.
Right.
So you just can't have anything like it. Go on.
So let's just refer, shall we, to some of the examples of borders in Middle-earth. We have, from the Silmarillion, for example, we have the Girdle of Melian, a literal magic shield around the entire realm of Doriath, in order to basically keep all foreigners out of it.
I love that it literally meant land of the fence.
Yes.
They were literally named after their border.
King Thingol says, we're going to build a fence. Yeah. And then
big, beautiful fence.
We're going to make the orcs pay for it.
Yeah. We have the city of Gondolin, which is a city encompassed by a range of mountains, so that it is the hidden city, and no foreigner can ever find it. And basically, through this means, they are able to shield themselves from Morgoth. Morgoth cannot find them for centuries and centuries. Interesting.
I just wanted to do some gardening.
Interesting point as well that Blind Guardian's Mirror Mirror is the song that this is based from.
Good song.
Yeah, fantastic. But then, okay,
you need to listen to some Blind Guardian, like I told you last Friday.
Yeah.
If it's about this, I will.
Okay.
It's an entire album about the Silmarillion. Come on.
All right.
But then let's talk about, okay, but that's in the Silmarillion, and that wasn't published in his lifetime, so let's talk about The Lord of the Rings. Well, we have...
Your button's not working. Let me...
thank you.
Where's the mouse? There's the mouse. There you go.
Thank you. Lothlorien. As soon as they get out of Moria and they go to Lothlorien, not only are they deeply distrusted, but the entire fellowship is blindfolded by the elves so that they cannot find their way back into the Caras Galadhon once they've left it, right? Like, no, all of these people, you go to the town of Bree as well, there is a constant theme throughout the Lord of the Rings of suspicion of foreigners. This is something that's shown by the hobbits of the Shire, it's something that's shown by the men of Bree, it's something that's shown by the Rohirrim, and this is in some ways an aspect of how Sauron has, of course, divided them and stopped them from trusting one another. But the ultimate point is, of course, that throughout the events of the Lord of the Rings, they are not fighting for some multicultural utopia. They are fighting expressly. The hobbits are going to fight so that the Shire can be exactly as they love it and remember it when they return home. Obviously, you have the Scouring of the Shire, which is one of the most important things that Tolkien ever wrote as well.
Left out of the film.
Yes. And what's more as well, of course, it's exactly the same for the Men of Rohan, and of course, Gondor is about reclaiming the might of a lost heritage, right? That the men and kings fell into folly and were basically subverted by Sauron to lead to an apocalyptic event with the downfall of Numenor. And he subverts all of the institutions. He fills them with his own acolytes, and he basically makes the definition of good become evil, and he basically dissuades the Numenorians away from the divine path of friendship with the elves, and this results in total annihilation. And Aragorn is the restoration of the ancient way. And so all of this, but there's not just the fact that, okay, the nations obviously have borders as well. One of the things to just refer back to, it's okay, what she was saying, is the fact that Tolkien understood the importance of homelands, right? And that different people, different races, had different homelands. and that they had a right to their homeland. And this is something that he shows even in The Hobbit, a story that is meant primarily for children and is of a much lighter tone. It is the dwarves of Erebor and their quest to retake their homeland is a just thing, because it is being usurped by a villainous, tyrannical dragon who merely wants to extract and sit upon its wealth and resources that it didn't earn, and it has no spiritual connection to the actual home. It is...
Sounds pretty racist, mate.
It doesn't belong there. But then you also look...
Racist for children.
You also look at characters like Legolas. Now, Legolas is a really interesting character, actually, because though he is very cool in The Lord of the Rings, surfing on the shield and taking down Mumakil, there
Not
is...
in the books, those parts.
Yeah, there is a really interesting strain to Legolas's character, particularly in the books, where you have to remember as well, Legolas is an elf born in Middle-earth itself. All he has ever known is Middle-earth. However, the actual ancestral home of the elves, the Undying Lands, is across the sea. And so as soon as they go through the Pass of the Dead and Aragorn gets the army of the dead, that's the first time in Legolas's life that he actually sees the sea. He's only ever seen the land and the rivers and everything before then. And he gets this, what is termed this sea longing. Because even though he's never been to the Undying Lands, he knows in his heart there is this yearning for homeland.
Have you even been?
Have you ever been to the Undying Lands? Oh, dear.
And this is a really important part to his character. And Legolas's story ends with him giving in to this need, and he crafts a ship and sails off to be with his people where he is historically supposed to be. And so Tolkien understood the importance of homelands deeply. And combining this with, of course, his Catholicism, yes, Tolkien did have great contentions with apartheid. Yes, Tolkien had a great contention with the way that the Germans treated Jewish refugees and, the minority population. But having a sort of Catholic universal compassion for all life is not the same thing as forcing every people into the world, to inhabit the same spaces and live in the same countries and basically make them into melting pot cities, right? He understood the virtue of...
Turning them all into orcs.
Right. He understood the virtue of the particular. And so I will just end with this for the sake of time, which is, of course, that another aspect to Tolkien's world that, and I do feel that the films are largely responsible for this misconception, is the idea that the ring is basically trying to just warn you against the danger of seizing power entirely. That what you should do is you should repudiate power. Say, I don't want that, I'm not worthy of it. That's Aragorn's, how they write Aragorn in the film, that those who are to take power, the only people worthy of it are those that don't want it. Whereas actually when you look at Aragorn's character in the books, this is a man entirely, his destiny is in his blood, and his entire life is dedicated to the cause of mending his ancestors' mistakes and basically restoring justice and order.
Yeah, they
to
wanted
the
to make
West.
him a bit more of a reluctant hero in the films. Probably for audience purposes, he'll be more easy to sympathise with if he doesn't accept it straight away.
Right. And so you have this aspect as well where the ring is really, in the films, it's got this idea of, well, it's just you have to repudiate power entirely. But that's not really what the ring is. The ring represents power used to specific ends. And so there is good power. There is a power of Gandalf and Aragorn and the hobbits who basically want to use it to protect and defend what they have. And actually, if you don't step forward and preserve the divine, preserve the good, then evil will fill that vacuum. So you always owe it to yourself to keep evil out of power. And really, the struggle, not just of the Lord of the Rings, but Tolkien's entire legendarium, can really be summed up in this one particular quote from one of his letters, which is that the struggle is always the same. It is beauty against ruthless ugliness, tyranny against kingship, moderated freedom with consent against compulsion that has long lost any object save mere power. And so this is, to me, very, very clear cut. And the point of all of this is simply to say that the leftists can screech about this all they want, but it's just noise, right? Now, I'm not going to say Tolkien would have been in agreement with everything I've said in these past 20 minutes, but I'm pretty certain he'd have agreed with me more than basically what the people arguing against this, what their vision of the good is, what their vision of the future is, because Tolkien wrote that legendarium for the English, and I don't see how he could support or would have bothered to write it for an England in which the English no longer even exist.
Yes, I doubt that he had many overlapping social views with fat foreign retards.
I don't think so either.
Yes.
So, there we are.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.